Hi, in this video I'm going to talk to you about how to change habits, what you can do to change those habits that disempower you, that don't help you get where you're going. As you know, in my previous video we talked about procrastination. And procrastination is just another type of habit, but people who procrastinate tend to succeed less. But first, before we talk about habits, let's understand what is a habit. A habit is simply an automatic behavior that we do without thinking. You probably have heard the idea of unconscious incompetence, where you're unaware that you do something incorrectly. Then you have a thing called conscious incompetence, and that's where you are aware that you do something incorrectly. And then you come to a thing called conscious competence, and that's where you're aware and you're aware of what you need to do. And then eventually, this is where the habit comes in, you become unconsciously competent. You do that thing correctly without even thinking about it. Now, habits are created primarily by two elements. Yes, you got it. Pain, pleasure. Simple as that. Almost 99% of all human behavior is based on pain, pleasure, idea. Now, what is a habit? According to the National Institute of Health, they say the brain likes habits because they're efficient. When we automate common actions, you free up mental resources to do other things or to do other activities. Now, this is important to keep in mind because the brain likes habits. Habits in themselves are not bad. It's just the types of habits that we might have that can affect us negatively or beneficially. I mean, if you have the habit of getting up every morning to go for a run and then do some meditation, and then you eat a healthy breakfast, and then you sit down and make all your cold calls because you're a sales professional, and you have your sales pipeline like full of leads and stuff like that, great, good for you. But most people don't actually live that way. The reality is, unfortunately, most people are looking for that short-term fix, that short-term pleasure. And living in America at the moment, I'm amazed. It's amazing, the amount of obese people. I mean, it's just, obviously, it's not all these people have thyroid problems. I mean, they'll say, oh, I have a thyroid problem, I'm insulin resistant, I'm this, I'm that. No, it's just they have bad eating habits. End of story. Or maybe they've had bad eating habits for so long that they've developed health problems that makes it more difficult for them now to get control of their diet. Either way, it all was created by bad habits. There's no around it. Maybe only 2% actually have a true genetic or a health disposition from when they were born where they couldn't lose weight. The rest of it is just bull. It's just the bad habits. And I meet people and they say, oh, I got a thyroid condition. But then if you watch them, you'll see them go off on their own, sit there and like stuff their face in a big box of donuts. Those are bad habits, right? It's not beneficial to you. It's the same thing. If you eat a candy bar every night and it doesn't affect you, maybe that's not a bad thing. But if you eat the whole box, I mean, that's a problem. Or same thing, if you go out and you have a cold beer every night or have a glass of wine, maybe not the best thing, but not the worst thing for your body either. But if you sit there and you drink a 12-pack every night, I can guarantee you that's gonna have some mileage on the body, on the liver, and it's definitely really bad for the neurology. Now, according to the National Institute of Health, they say the hardest habits to break are those habits that give us pleasure because there's a release of dopamine into the brain. Now that makes sense because dopamine makes you feel good, right? So you do a behavior that maybe is not actually beneficial for you long-term or doesn't fit in with your goals, but because you get this dopamine rush, you say, hey, I'm gonna do this anyway. No, bad idea. Now if you go to the gym and you do exercise, you may not get a dopamine rush the first day or the second or the third or the first week or the second week maybe. It might take 2, 3, 4 weeks before you start getting that dopamine rush and that dopamine buzz. But eventually you will get it. And that will create a positive reinforcement to keep going to the gym, for example, right? If you're saying, well, I don't get a dopamine rush if I don't eat the chocolate bar. That's true. So you need to find another activity that is healthier that you can replace eating the chocolate bar or the pizza or the beer to replace that. So what I find that works for myself, it works really, really well, is to replace one habit with another one. I stopped smoking many years ago. I was in China working. And when I stopped smoking, I replaced it with eating Hall's cough drops. So every time I went to cigarette, I pop Hall's in my mouth. After about 3 weeks, more or less, and drinking a lot of water in the process, every day got easier, got easier. And as time went on, it got easier. Now, during that during that 3 weeks, of course, I thought about having a cigarette. Yes, I had a craving to have a cigarette. And even 3 months on, the idea, I didn't have cravings for cigarettes anymore, but sometimes I would have triggers, mental triggers to have a cigarette. There'd be certain things like, for example, get into the car, put the keys in the ignition, turn on the motor, flip on the radio, and pop a cigarette in my mouth was an automatic habit that I had. And that took a little bit of time for me to break. But eventually I did. It was no big deal. And you can do the same. If I could do it, you can do it. Anybody can do it. It's just a matter of having the desire to want to do it. You need to have the motivation. And a lot of people don't have motivation. They just kind of want to float through life, and that's fine for them. And if they're happy with where they are, more power to them. God bless them. But for those of us that want more in our lives, and we want to live better lives and more empowered lives, and want to go somewhere, want to be more successful, or just be in good shape, or just have good health, let's say just basic good health, then we need to take control of our lives. Now, a little bit more on habit. So how long does it take to build a good habit? Well, there was a book written by an author. He was a plastic surgeon, actually, not an author. Famous plastic surgeon in the 1960s. His name was Maxwell Maltz. Those of you listening that are a bit older will know who I'm talking about. And he wrote a book based on his experiences with his patients. And I said he was a well-known, famous plastic surgeon. And he would find like people that had no physical defect after having some kind of plastic surgery enhancement or whatever, wouldn't be any happier or wouldn't fix their problem because it was all like psychological in their minds. But one of the things he put in his book is he said, habits takes 21 days to create. And the name of the book was Cybernetics. Now, people have tried to debunk the book and say it's not true. To some degree, there's been some research that indicates that it's more than 21 days. And there was research conducted in 2009 in a study published by the European Journal of Social Psychology, and it said it takes anywhere from, check this out, 18 days to 254 days per person to form a new habit, depending on the habit, what it is, and of course, the person and how long it takes for them to learn new behaviors. Teach an old dog a new trick might take a little bit longer, might take a little bit less. Just depends on you and me. Depends also on motivation. But the one thing I can say about habits is when we do change behavior, the beginning is always much more difficult. It's an uphill battle. But then it gets easier and it gets easier. So the further you go, the easier it gets. So what I'm getting at is, if you start a new habit, the first week might be a bit challenging. The second week will be easier. And you might have some ups and downs in that second week. And the third week will be easier and so forth. Now, if you mess up, let's say in that first period of time, let's say that first month, you'll notice what will happen. Let's say you've gone 2 weeks without eating chocolate bars. And then on the second week, you mess up and you have a chocolate bar. Okay, big deal. What you'll find is the next day or the next couple of days, it might be a little bit harder to stay on the path of not eating chocolate bars every night, if that was your thing that you're trying to remedy, right? But it's not going to be as hard as it was the first day. The important thing is that you continue on the path. And what will happen over time, it will become less and less and less difficult. You'll think about it less, and just eventually, automatically, you'll become unconsciously incompetent and you won't eat those chocolate bars anymore. Now, if we're trying to create habits, good habits, that's talking about avoiding like chocolate bars. Could do the same for even beer, cigarettes, overeating, those donuts that people like, all that crap that people buy in the supermarket. Stay away from most of that stuff. Also, the high corn syrup, fructose, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's rubbish. In Europe, they don't even allow it, straight up. They don't even allow it. So I wouldn't eat it. There's probably a reason why it's not allowed. And there's about 500 million people in Europe, and they're pretty smart, actually. But anyway, it's important that you keep in mind that you have a straight goal on what it is that you want to accomplish. Again, check out our video on procrastination. It said procrastination is just a type of habit, and it really is important that you learn not to procrastinate if you want to be successful, whether that's at work, your personal life, or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. It takes discipline, but more than discipline, you need to have the willpower. You need to really want it. If you really want it, you'll find it. If you don't really want it, it's going to be a lot more difficult to achieve what it is that you're trying to achieve. So that's the first thing, is get your why right. Why do I want to do this? Why do I want to change this? And am I changing it for me? Am I doing it for somebody else? That's another great question to ask yourself. And then you say, okay, I'm doing this for myself and I want to do it for these specific reasons. And keep those reasons, those motivations in front of you all the time. All the time. Because there's temptation and people will come along and try to get you off that path of where you're trying to go. It's just part of life. It's just the way it is. So you need to keep those motivations in front of you. Then get a coach that can help you create a roadmap to how you're going to get where it is you want to go. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, give us a like, subscribe, turn on the notifications, do some of that stuff, whatever that stuff you got to do. And anyway, success always, and have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching. We look forward to seeing you, or I look forward to making you another video. Make sure you leave the comments so I know what kind of videos to make, because if you guys don't make comments, I get a bit confused. And I made this one because of comments. Take care. Bye.